Hello there, and welcome to the Sleepy Library. Tonight, we're setting out on a gentle journey along the greatest river system our planet has ever known. The Amazon River, a vast network of water that breathes life into an entire continent, carrying more water than any other river on Earth. As you settle in for the evening, let your mind flow along these ancient waterways, through rainforests older than memory, past settlements that have stood for thousands of years, and into the heart of a river that once flowed in the opposite direction entirely. If these calm explorations help you find rest, consider subscribing to the channel. It helps others discover these quiet journeys too, creating a gentle community of those who find peace in learning about our remarkable world. Now, close your eyes if you'd like, and let's begin our journey down the Amazon. The Amazon River carries more water than any other river on Earth, a fact so overwhelming in scale that it's difficult for the human mind to truly comprehend. Every single second, the Amazon pours approximately 209,000 cubic meters of fresh water into the Atlantic Ocean. That's roughly 55 million gallons rushing toward the sea in the time it takes you to draw a single breath. To put this in perspective, the amount of water the Amazon delivers to the ocean in just one day could supply New York City's water needs for 9 entire years. This tremendous volume represents about 20% of all the fresh water that flows into the world's oceans from all rivers combined. When you close your eyes and imagine this, picture a river so mighty that it's less like a single waterway and more like a moving freshwater sea, constantly renewing itself, constantly flowing, never stopping its patient journey from the mountains to the ocean. At its mouth, where the Amazon meets the Atlantic, something remarkable happens. The river pushes so much fresh water into the ocean that it actually changes the salt content of the Atlantic for more than 100 miles out to sea. Ships, far from sight of land, can drop buckets into the ocean and pull up drinkable fresh water, the Amazon's influence extending so far beyond its banks that it creates a freshwater plume visible from space. Sailors in centuries past used this phenomenon as a navigation aid, knowing they were approaching South America when the ocean water beneath their ships turned from salty to fresh. They could literally taste their proximity to the continent, the Amazon announcing itself through the very chemistry of the sea. The river's width varies dramatically with the seasons, transforming the landscape in a rhythm as old as the continent itself. During the dry season, the main channel of the Amazon averages between 2 and 6 miles wide, already impressive by any standard. But when the rains come and the wet season arrives, the river swells to magnificent proportions, reaching widths of up to 30 miles in some places. If you could walk across the river during these times of high water, maintaining a steady pace, it would take you 8 full hours to reach the other side. But this is just the main channel. At its mouth, the Amazon spreads to an almost incomprehensible width of approximately 235 miles, wider than the entire country of Ireland. The source of the Amazon has been a matter of scientific debate for generations, a mystery that has only recently begun to be solved. For nearly a century, scientists believed the river's most distant source was the Apurimac River, flowing from the snow-capped peak of Nevado Mismi in Peru, high in the Andes Mountains at an elevation of over 18,000 feet. A simple wooden cross marks this spot, standing alone in the thin mountain air where glacial melt begins its long journey to the sea. But in 2014, researchers proposed that the true source might be the Mantaro River, flowing from the Cordillera Rumi Cruz, which would add another 47 to 57 miles to the river's already impressive length. This ongoing debate reflects how much we still have to learn about this river system, how its complexity continues to challenge our understanding, even in an age of satellite mapping and GPS technology. The Amazon's length itself is a subject of fascinating uncertainty. Traditionally measured at approximately 4,000 miles, making it the second longest river after the Nile, some recent measurements suggest it might actually be longer, perhaps even the longest river in the world. Brazilian scientists using modern satellite technology have calculated the river's length at up to 4,345 miles, which would make it longer than the Nile. The difficulty in establishing a definitive length comes from the river's incredible complexity, its countless tributaries, and the challenge of determining exactly where the river ends and the ocean begins. In the vast delta region, channels split and merge, creating a maze of waterways that make precise measurement almost impossible. The Amazon basin, the area drained by the river and all its tributaries, covers approximately 2.7 million square miles. That's roughly 40% of the entire South American continent. An area so vast, it could contain the entire continental United States with room to spare. This basin extends across 8 countries: Brazil, Peru, Colombia, Venezuela, Ecuador, Bolivia, Guyana, and Suriname, though Brazil contains about 60% of the basin within its borders. Every drop of rain that falls in this enormous area eventually finds its way to the Amazon River, creating the largest drainage system our planet has ever known. What makes the Amazon truly unique among the world's great rivers is not just its size, but its incredible complexity. The river has over 1,100 tributaries, streams and rivers that feed into the main channel like veins, feeding a great artery. 17 of these tributaries are themselves over 1,000 miles long, each one a major river in its own right. The Madeira River, the Amazon's largest tributary, stretches for 2,020 miles, longer than the Missouri River. The Purus winds for 1,995 miles, and the Japara flows for 1,750 miles. These are not mere streams feeding a river. They are mighty waterways that would be considered among the world's great rivers if they flowed independently to the sea. The Amazon's water comes in 3 distinct types, each with its own chemical signature and ecological character. There are the whitewater rivers, flowing from the young Andes Mountains, carrying heavy loads of nutrient-rich sediment that gives them a café au lait color. These rivers, including the main stem of the Amazon itself, support incredibly productive ecosystems, their sediments fertilizing vast floodplain forests. Then there are the blackwater rivers, like the famous Rio Negro, which drain ancient forests growing on nutrient-poor white sand soils. These rivers are stained dark by tannins from decomposing leaves, like a vast flow of tea, and their waters are acidic, sometimes with a pH as low as 4.5. Finally, there are the clear-water rivers, like the Tapajós and Xingu, which flow from the ancient Brazilian and Guyana shields, old geological formations that release few nutrients or sediments. These rivers run clear and blue-green, their waters neither rich with sediment nor dark with tannins. Where these different types of water meet, remarkable phenomena occur. The most famous is the meeting of waters near Manaus, Brazil, where the dark Rio Negro meets the sandy-colored Solimões, which is what Brazilians call the Upper Amazon. For more than 4 miles, these 2 rivers flow side by side without mixing, a ribbon of black water running alongside a ribbon of tan, clearly visible from above, like 2 different rivers sharing the same channel. This occurs because the waters have different temperatures, speeds, and densities. The Rio Negro flows at about 1 mile per hour at a temperature of about 82 degrees Fahrenheit, while the Solimois moves at 4 miles per hour at 79 degrees. Eventually, turbulence causes them to mix, but for those 4 miles, they maintain their separate identities, a visual reminder of the complex chemistry and physics at work in this river system. The Amazon's effect on global climate is profound and far-reaching. The river and its surrounding rainforest act as a massive air conditioner for our planet, recycling moisture and regulating temperature patterns that affect weather systems around the world. Every day, the trees of the Amazon rainforest release about 20 billion tons of water vapor into the atmosphere through transpiration, more water than the Amazon River itself carries to the ocean. This moisture creates aerial rivers, invisible streams of water vapor that flow through the atmosphere, carrying rain to regions far from the Amazon itself. These aerial rivers are so substantial that they transport more water than the Amazon River at its mouth, influencing rainfall patterns as far away as the American Midwest and the plains of Argentina. The sediment carried by the Amazon is equally remarkable in its global impact. Every year, the river transports approximately 1.3 billion tons of sediment from the Andes Mountains to the Atlantic Ocean. This is enough material to build a mountain 3,000 feet high, with a base covering 1 square mile, delivered fresh to the ocean every single year. But the sediment doesn't just disappear into the sea. Ocean currents carry much of it northward, where it settles along the coasts of French Guiana and Suriname, actually building new land along these shorelines. Some of this Amazonian sediment has been detected as far away as the beaches of Florida, the river's influence extending thousands of miles beyond its mouth. In a beautiful example of planetary interconnection, dust from the Sahara Desert in Africa plays a crucial role in fertilizing the Amazon rainforest. Every year, winds carry approximately 27 million tons of Saharan dust across the Atlantic Ocean to South America. This dust, rich in phosphorus and other nutrients, helps replenish the minerals that heavy tropical rains constantly wash from the Amazon soil. It's a remarkable cycle. The world's largest desert feeding the world's largest rainforest, connected by wind patterns that have existed for millions of years. Without this African dust, the Amazon ecosystem would gradually become depleted of essential nutrients, showing how the health of the rainforest depends on factors from an entirely different continent. The Amazon basin experiences a flood pulse, a seasonal rhythm of rising and falling water that shapes every aspect of life along the river. Water levels can fluctuate by as much as 45 feet between the wet and dry seasons, with some tributaries showing even more extreme variations. This isn't the destructive flooding we often associate with rivers overflowing their banks, but rather a predictable, life-giving cycle that has shaped the evolution of countless species and human cultures over millions of years. The floods begin gradually, the water rising day by day as rain falls across the vast basin and snowmelt from the Andes adds to the flow. At the height of the flood season, an area larger than England and Wales combined lies underwater, creating the world's largest system of freshwater flooded forests. These flooded forests, known as varzea when they occur along whitewater rivers, and igapo along blackwater and clearwater rivers, are among the most remarkable ecosystems on Earth. For several months each year, you can paddle a canoe through the forest canopy, floating 30 or 40 feet above the regular forest floor. Fish swim among the tree trunks, eating fruits that fall from branches now at water level. Dolphins seize fish through what, during the dry season, would be forest paths. Trees have evolved special adaptations to survive these months underwater. Some can hold their breath, essentially shutting down their metabolism, while others have developed specialized roots that can extract oxygen even from the water-saturated environment. The trees of the flooded forest time their fruit production to coincide with the high water, when fish can reach their branches. Over 100 species of fish have evolved to eat fruits and seeds, becoming the primary seed dispersers for many tree species. The tambaqui, a large fish that can weigh up to 60 pounds, has powerful jaws specially adapted for crushing hard palm nuts. During the flood season, these fish grow fat on the bounty of falling fruits, building up reserves that will sustain them through the leaner dry season. When the waters recede, they carry the seeds they've consumed to new locations, planting the next generation of forest. It's a partnership between fish and trees that exists nowhere else on Earth at this scale. The seasonal floods create a moving feast for many animals. As waters rise, terrestrial insects and other small creatures are forced to climb higher into the trees, concentrating them in smaller and smaller areas. This creates bonanzas for insectivorous birds and bats. Army ants, those famous raiders of the forest floor, must also adapt to the floods. Some species create living rafts, linking their bodies together to float on the water's surface, protecting their queen and larvae in the center of these ant boats. When they encounter a tree trunk or other solid ground, they disembark and continue their relentless hunting. Beneath the surface of the Amazon's waters lives an assembly of creatures that challenges our understanding of freshwater ecosystems. Scientists estimate that the Amazon basin contains between 2,500 and 5,000 species of fish, more than the entire Atlantic Ocean. New species are discovered regularly, with researchers estimating that perhaps 40% of the Amazon's fish species remain unknown to science. This diversity isn't spread evenly through the system, but concentrated in different habitats. The main channels have their communities, the flooded forests others, the rapids still others, each environment supporting its own unique collection of species. The Amazon is home to some of the world's most remarkable fish. The pirarucu, or arapaima, is one of the largest freshwater fish on Earth, growing up to 15 feet long and weighing up to 440 pounds. These ancient fish, whose lineage dates back to the age of dinosaurs, are air breathers, surfacing every 5 to 15 minutes to gulp air with a distinctive coughing sound. Their scales are so tough that they're virtually impervious to piranha bites, armor that has protected them for millions of years. Local peoples have traditionally used these scales as nail files and arrow points, and modern scientists are studying them to develop flexible body armor. The electric eel, despite its name, is not an eel at all, but a type of knife fish that can grow up to 8 feet long. These remarkable creatures can generate electrical discharges of up to 860 volts, enough to stun a horse. They use electricity not just for hunting and defense, but also for navigation and communication, living in a world of electrical fields that we can barely imagine. The electric eel has 3 pairs of electric organs that make up most of its body, biological batteries that can discharge in different patterns for different purposes. Low voltage for navigation and communication, high voltage for hunting and defense. Then there are the infamous piranhas, perhaps the most misunderstood fish in the Amazon. While popular media portrays them as vicious killers that can strip the flesh from a cow in minutes, the reality is far more nuanced. Of the 30 to 60 species of piranha in the Amazon, only about 5 pose any potential danger to large animals, and attacks on humans are extremely rare. Most piranhas are actually omnivores, eating fruits, seeds, and insects as much as fish and meat. They play a crucial role in the ecosystem as scavengers, cleaning the river of dead and dying animals. During the dry season, when fish are concentrated in shrinking pools, piranhas may become more aggressive, but for most of the year, they're just another part of the river's complex web of life. The Amazon River dolphin, known locally as boto, is one of the river's most charismatic inhabitants. These dolphins, which can grow up to 8.5 feet long and weigh up to 400 pounds, are unique among dolphins in their pink coloration, which becomes more intense with age and excitement. Males are particularly pink, and during the mating season, they become almost fluorescent in their pinkness. Unlike ocean dolphins, botos have unfused neck vertebrae, allowing them to turn their heads 90 degrees, an adaptation essential for navigating through flooded forests. They also have small eyes and long beaks filled with differentiated teeth, perfect for catching the diverse fish of the murky Amazon waters. These dolphins have evolved remarkable echolocation abilities to navigate and hunt in the sediment-laden waters, where visibility often extends only inches. They can emit clicks at frequencies up to 170 kHz, well beyond human hearing range, creating detailed acoustic maps of their environment. Their echolocation is so precise, they can distinguish between different species of fish by the sound reflections from their swim bladders. During the flood season, boto dolphins swim deep into the flooded forest, navigating between tree trunks with extraordinary grace, pursuing fish in places where no ocean dolphin could ever venture. The boto holds a special place in Amazonian mythology and culture. According to legend, boto dolphins can transform into handsome young men who emerge from the river at night to seduce young women at village parties. These transformed dolphins are said to always wear hats to hide their blowholes, and they must return to the river before dawn or they'll die. Children born from these unions are called children of the boto, and even today, in many river communities, unexplained pregnancies are sometimes attributed to the boto. This mythology has probably helped protect these dolphins, as many local people consider it bad luck to kill a boto, fearing supernatural retribution. Living alongside the boto is another river dolphin, the tucuxi, smaller and more typically dolphin-like in appearance. Tucuxi are grey in colour and more social than botos, often travelling in groups of 10 to 15 individuals. They're incredibly acrobatic, frequently leaping clear of the water, behaviour that's less common in botos. The two species often feed in the same areas, but rarely interact, occupying slightly different ecological niches in the vast river system. Tucuxi prefer the main river channels and larger lakes, while botos are more likely to venture into flooded forests and smaller tributaries. The Amazon is also home to the Amazonian manatee, the smallest of the world's manatees, and the only one that lives exclusively in fresh water. These gentle giants can reach 10 feet in length and weigh up to 1,000 pounds, spending their days slowly grazing on aquatic plants. They can eat up to 8% of their body weight daily, consuming 60 to 100 pounds of vegetation. During the flood season, when aquatic plants are abundant, manatees build up fat reserves that sustain them through the dry season when food becomes scarce. They can slow their metabolism and survive for up to 7 months with little food, living off their stored fat. Manatees have played an important role in maintaining the health of Amazon waterways by controlling aquatic vegetation that might otherwise clog channels and lakes. Their grazing creates open water areas that other species depend on, and their digestion helps cycle nutrients through the aquatic ecosystem. Despite their size, Manatees are surprisingly graceful swimmers, using their powerful tail flukes to move through the water with slow, deliberate movements that barely disturb the surface. They can stay submerged for up to 20 minutes, though they typically surface to breathe every 3 to 5 minutes. One of the Amazon's most fearsome predators is the black caiman, which can grow up to 20 feet long and weigh over 2,000 pounds, making it the largest predator in the Amazon ecosystem. These prehistoric-looking reptiles are apex predators, capable of taking prey as large as tapirs, deer, and even jaguars that venture too close to the water's edge. Young caimans feed on fish, crustaceans, and small mammals, but as they grow, their diet expands to include almost anything they can overpower. During the dry season, black caimans often dig deep pools in drying wetlands, creating refuges that become crucial survival spots for fish and other aquatic life, inadvertently becoming ecosystem engineers. The giant river otter, locally known as Lobo del Rio or river wolf, represents another apex predator of the Amazon's waters. These are the longest members of the weasel family, reaching up to 6 feet in length and weighing up to 75 pounds. They live in extended family groups of 3 to 8 individuals, maintaining territories along riverbanks where they build elaborate den systems. Giant otters are incredibly vocal, with researchers documenting at least 22 distinct vocalizations used for different situations. Their high-pitched screams and snorts can be heard over a mile away, serving to maintain group cohesion and warn away rivals. These otters are remarkable hunters, working cooperatively to herd fish into shallow water where they're easier to catch. A single giant otter can consume up to 9 pounds of fish daily, and family groups have been observed taking on and eating young caimans and anacondas. Their webbed feet, flattened tails, and closable nostrils make them perfectly adapted for an aquatic lifestyle. They can swim at speeds up to 9 miles per hour and dive to depths of 20 feet in pursuit of prey. When resting, they create communal latrines and grooming sites on the riverbank, areas cleared of vegetation where the whole family gathers to socialize and maintain their water-repellent fur. The green anaconda, the world's heaviest snake, makes its home in the Amazon's waters and wetlands. While not the longest snake, that honor goes to the reticulated python. Anacondas are far more massive, with large females reaching lengths of 20 feet and weights exceeding 500 pounds. These powerful constrictors are semi-aquatic, equally comfortable in water and on land, but preferring to spend most of their time in or near water, where their massive bulk is supported. Their eyes and nostrils are positioned on top of their heads, allowing them to lie almost completely submerged while watching for prey. Anacondas are ambush predators, waiting motionless in murky water for unsuspecting prey to come within striking distance. Their diet includes fish, birds, capybaras, deer, tapirs, caimans, and even jaguars. They kill by constriction, wrapping their muscular coils around prey and squeezing until blood flow stops and the victim loses consciousness. Contrary to popular belief, they don't crush bones, but rather prevent breathing and circulation. After a large meal, an anaconda might not eat again for weeks or even months, slowly digesting its prey. Female anacondas practice one of nature's most extreme forms of sexual dimorphism, growing to be 5 times heavier than males. During mating season, multiple males may court a single large female in breeding balls that can last for weeks. Along the Amazon's banks and in its waters lives the capybara, the world's largest rodent. These gentle giants can weigh up to 146 pounds and stand 2 feet tall at the shoulder. Capybaras are semi-aquatic, with partially webbed feet for swimming and the ability to stay submerged for up to 5 minutes. They're social animals, living in groups of 10 to 20 individuals. Though in the dry season, when water becomes scarce, groups of up to 100 may gather around remaining water sources. Their calm demeanor has made them something of an internet sensation, often photographed serenely sharing space with other animals, from birds perched on their backs to young caimans basking beside them. These oversized guinea pig relatives are ecosystem engineers in their own right. Their grazing helps maintain the grasslands along riverbanks, and their droppings fertilize aquatic plants. They're also a crucial food source for many predators, including jaguars, anacondas, and caimans. Capybaras have evolved several adaptations for their semi-aquatic lifestyle. Their ears, eyes, and nostrils are positioned high on their heads for surface swimming, and they can close their ears and nostrils when diving. They even mate in water and give birth to precocial young that can swim before they can walk properly. The bird life along the Amazon River is equally spectacular, with over 1,300 species recorded in the basin. The hoatzin, one of the most unusual birds in the world, lives along the slow-moving tributaries and oxbow lakes of the Amazon. Sometimes called the stink bird, due to the manure-like odor produced by its unique digestive system, the hoatzin is the only bird that ferments plant matter in its crop like a cow, complete with bacterial fermentation. Young hoatzins have claws on their wings, a primitive feature that allows them to climb back into trees if they fall into the water while escaping predators. These claws are lost as the birds mature, but they serve as a reminder of the evolutionary link between modern birds and their dinosaur ancestors. The jabiru stork, standing up to 5 feet tall with a wingspan of 9 feet, is the tallest flying bird in South and Central America. These impressive birds wade through shallow waters along the Amazon, using their massive bills to catch fish, frogs, and even young caimans. During the breeding season, jabirus build enormous stick nests in tall trees, platforms that can be 10 feet across and 6 feet deep. These nests are often reused year after year, growing larger with each breeding season. The sight of a jabiru standing motionless in the shallows, waiting for prey to pass within striking distance, is one of the iconic images of the Amazon's waterways. Kingfishers of various sizes patrol the Amazon's waters, from the tiny pygmy kingfisher, no bigger than a sparrow, to the impressive ringed kingfisher, the size of a crow. These birds have evolved different fishing strategies to avoid competition. Some hover over the water before diving, others hunt from perches, and some species actually swim underwater in pursuit of prey. The Amazon kingfisher, with its iridescent green back and rufous chest, can be seen perched on branches overhanging the water, occasionally giving its rattling call before plunging into the river to emerge with a small fish held triumphantly in its bill. The river's edge is also home to numerous species of herons and egrets, from the massive Kukoi heron, South America's largest heron, to the delicate snowy egret with its golden slippers, bright yellow feet that it uses to stir up prey in shallow water. The bizarre boat-billed heron, with its impossibly wide bill that looks like a wooden shoe, hunts at night, using its broad bill to scoop up fish, shrimp, and insects in the darkness. During the day, these odd-looking birds roost in colonies in mangroves and riverside trees, their bills tucked under their wings, looking like entirely different creatures. High in the trees along the riverbanks, howler monkeys announce each dawn and dusk with calls that can be heard up to 3 miles away. These vocalizations, among the loudest of any land animal, are produced by an enlarged hyoid bone that acts as a resonating chamber. The howling serves to establish territory and maintain spacing between troops without the need for energy-expensive physical confrontations. Red howler monkeys, the most common species along the Amazon, live in groups of 5 to 9 individuals, spending up to 80% of their day resting to conserve energy for digesting their leaf-heavy diet. The Amazon's waters and surrounding forests support several species of sloths, including the three-toed sloth, which has become something of a symbol of the rainforest's unhurried pace of life. These slow-moving mammals spend most of their lives hanging from branches, coming down to the ground only once a week to defecate. This weekly bathroom trip is one of the mysteries of sloth behavior. Why risk predation by descending to the forest floor when they could easily defecate from the trees? Scientists believe this behavior may help fertilize the trees they depend on, or may be related to the complex ecosystem of moths and algae that live in sloth fur. Sloths are surprising swimmers, able to move through water 3 times faster than they move on land. During the flood season, sloths sometimes fall into the water or need to cross flooded areas to reach new feeding trees. They can hold their breath for up to 40 minutes, their naturally slow metabolism actually helping them survive extended periods underwater. Their long arms make them efficient swimmers, using a sort of doggy paddle to navigate through flooded forests. The interaction between terrestrial and aquatic life reaches its peak during the flood season, when the boundaries between land and water become blurred. Jaguars, the Amazon's apex terrestrial predator, are excellent swimmers and regularly hunt in the water, taking caimans, fish, and river turtles. These powerful cats have the strongest bite force of any big cat, able to pierce turtle shells and caiman skulls with their powerful jaws. During floods, jaguars may spend weeks in the canopy, moving through the trees and swimming between forest islands, demonstrating their remarkable adaptability to the Amazon's seasonal changes. The Amazon River has shaped human history in South America for at least 11,000 years, with archaeological evidence suggesting that complex societies flourished along its banks long before European contact. The river provided everything these early peoples needed: protein from fish and aquatic mammals, fertile soil renewed annually by floods, transportation routes that connected communities across thousands of miles, and materials for building and crafting. Recent archaeological discoveries have revolutionized our understanding of pre-Columbian Amazonia, revealing that what was once thought to be pristine wilderness was actually a landscape heavily modified by human activity. On Marajo Island, at the mouth of the Amazon, the Marajoara culture flourished between approximately 400 and 1300 CE, building massive earthen mounds, some over 30 feet tall and covering several acres. These mounds, which required moving millions of cubic feet of earth, served as platforms for houses and ceremonial structures, keeping them above the annual floods. The Marajoara people created elaborate pottery, some of the most sophisticated in the Americas, with intricate geometric designs and stylized representations of humans and animals. They managed water through complex systems of canals and raised fields, turning seasonally flooded savannas into productive agricultural land that could support populations of perhaps 100,000 people or more. Terra Preta, or Amazonian dark earth, represents one of the most intriguing legacies of pre-Columbian peoples. This incredibly fertile soil, found in patches throughout the Amazon basin, was deliberately created by indigenous peoples through a process that scientists are still working to fully understand. By incorporating charcoal, pottery shards, bones, and organic waste into the naturally poor tropical soils, these ancient farmers created earth that remains fertile centuries after its creation. Some Terra Preta deposits are 6 feet deep and cover areas of several acres, representing generations of careful soil management. This soil is so rich that it actually regenerates itself, with modern farmers reporting that Terra preta seems to grow back after being harvested and sold. The indigenous peoples of the Amazon developed sophisticated knowledge of the river's seasonal patterns, fish behavior, and ecological relationships. They knew when and where different fish species would spawn, which fruits would attract which fish at what times of year, and how to read the river's moods from subtle changes in its color, smell, and sound. This knowledge was encoded in myths, stories, and rituals that served as both entertainment and education, passing crucial survival information from generation to generation. Many of these traditional ecological knowledge systems persist today, with indigenous communities maintaining fishing and farming practices that have sustained them for millennia. European exploration of the Amazon began in 1500, when Vicente Yáñez Pinzón, sailing for Spain, encountered the river's mouth. He was reportedly 200 miles out to sea when he noticed that the water beneath his ship was fresh, not salty. Following this anomaly to its source, he discovered a river mouth so vast he called it the Sweet Sea. But it was Francisco de Orellana's expedition of 1541-1542 that gave the river its modern name and brought it to European attention. Orellana's journey began as part of Gonzalo Pizarro's expedition, searching for El Dorado and cinnamon trees. But when food ran short, Orellana was sent ahead to find supplies and ended up traveling the entire length of the river to the Atlantic. The name Amazon comes from Orellana's reported encounters with fierce female warriors who reminded him of the Amazons of Greek mythology. On June 24, 1542, near the mouth of the Trombetas River, Orellana's expedition was attacked by warriors whom the Spanish described as tall, light-skinned women fighting alongside men. Whether these were actually women warriors or men with long hair, the name stuck, replacing Orellana's original name for the river, Rio de Orellana. The account of these warriors, written by Friar Gaspar de Carvajal, describes them as very white and tall, with long braided hair wound about their heads, going about naked but covered with their privy parts, with bows and arrows in their hands, fighting as courageously as 10 Indian men. The European colonization of the Amazon brought catastrophic changes to indigenous populations. Diseases like smallpox, measles, and influenza, to which native peoples had no immunity, spread along the river networks faster than the colonizers themselves, decimating populations before direct contact was even made. Slave raids, forced labor in rubber plantations, and missionary efforts to civilize indigenous peoples further disrupted traditional ways of life. The population of indigenous peoples in the Amazon basin fell from an estimated 6 to 8 million at the time of contact to fewer than 250,000 by the early 20th century, one of the most dramatic demographic collapses in human history. The rubber boom of the late 19th and early 20th centuries transformed the Amazon from a colonial backwater into one of the world's most valuable economic regions. The latex of the rubber tree, native to the Amazon, became essential industrial revolution, needed for everything from bicycle tires to electrical insulation. Cities like Manaus and Iquitos grew from small river towns into opulent metropolises, with Manaus building an opera house in the middle of the rainforest, complete with crystal chandeliers from Italy and marble from France. The wealth was built on the exploitation of indigenous peoples and poor migrants who were forced into debt slavery, tapping rubber trees under brutal conditions that killed thousands. The rubber boom ended abruptly when British botanist Henry Wickham smuggled 70,000 rubber tree seeds out of Brazil in 1876, leading to the establishment of rubber plantations in British colonies in Asia. By 1910, Asian plantations were producing rubber more efficiently and cheaply than wild collection in the Amazon, and the region's economy collapsed. The grand mansions were abandoned to the forest, and cities that had been among the richest in the world became backwaters again. But the infrastructure created during the rubber boom, the river ports, the knowledge of navigation, the trade networks, laid the foundation for the modern development of the Amazon. Today, more than 30 million people live in the Amazon basin, from indigenous communities maintaining traditional lifestyles to residents of modern cities like Manaus, which has over 2 million inhabitants. The river remains the primary transportation route for much of the region, with everything from small dugout canoes to massive container ships plying its waters. In many areas, the river is the only highway, with boats serving as buses, ambulances, and delivery trucks. Children travel by boat to school, families go by boat to church, and entire floating markets operate from boat to boat, selling everything from fresh fish to electronics. The Amazon's human communities have developed remarkable adaptations to the river's seasonal fluctuations. Houses along the floodplain are built on stilts or floating platforms, rising and falling with the water. Some communities relocate entirely during the flood season, moving to higher ground with their animals and belongings, then returning when the waters recede to farm the fertile floodplain. This seasonal migration has been practiced for thousands of years, a dance between humans and the river that continues today. During the floods, what were roads become boat channels, and people fish from their doorsteps in water that covers what was recently their gardens. The geological story of the Amazon River is one of continental collision, mountain building, and dramatic reversals that changed the face of South America. For millions of years, the ancestor of the Amazon flowed in the opposite direction, running westward from the ancient mountains of what is now Brazil toward the Pacific Ocean. This ancient river system existed when South America and Africa were still joined as part of the supercontinent Gondwana, and the Proto-Amazon-Congo River system drained the interior of this massive landmass. Everything changed with the rise of the Andes Mountains, one of the most significant geological events in South American history. Beginning about 65 million years ago, the collision between the Nazca Oceanic Plate and the South American Continental Plate caused the Earth's crust to buckle and fold, gradually building the massive mountain chain we see today. As the Andes rose, they blocked the westward flow of the ancient Amazon, creating a vast inland sea or wetland system in what is now the Amazon basin. For millions of years, this enormous body of water, sometimes called Lake Amazonas or the Pebas system, covered much of northern South America. The trapped waters had to find a new outlet, and gradually, over millions of years, they carved a path eastward. The rising Andes not only blocked the river, but also changed precipitation patterns, intercepting moisture-laden winds from the Atlantic and concentrating rainfall on their eastern slopes. This increased precipitation accelerated erosion, and the sediments washed from the young mountains began filling the inland sea. Approximately 10 million years ago, the accumulated sediments and the continued uplift of the Andes finally tilted the continent enough that waters breached the Purus Arch, a low ridge that had separated the inland drainage from the Atlantic, and the modern Amazon River was born, flowing eastward to the sea. Evidence of this dramatic reversal is written in the very sediments of the Amazon basin. Scientists studying zircon crystals, tiny mineral grains that act as geological clocks, found ancient crystals in the western Amazon that could only have come from the old Brazilian highlands to the east, proving that rivers once flowed westward across the continent. Younger sediments contain zircons from the Andes, marking when the flow reversed. The river's reversal didn't happen overnight, but was a gradual process taking millions of years, a slow-motion transformation that reshaped an entire continent. The creation of the eastward-flowing Amazon had profound effects on South American ecology. The new river system connected previously isolated regions, allowing fish and other aquatic species to spread across the continent. It created the conditions for the Amazon rainforest to develop into the most biodiverse ecosystem on Earth. The river became a highway for evolution, with different tributaries developing their own unique species that would occasionally mix when river courses changed, creating new opportunities for adaptation and speciation. The Amazon's reversal is one of the great geological stories of our planet, showing how the slow dance of tectonic plates can completely transform the surface of the Earth. The Amazon continues to evolve today, though at a pace too slow for human eyes to perceive. The Andes are still rising, pushed up by the ongoing collision of tectonic plates, and every year they shed billions of tons of sediment into the Amazon system. This sediment is constantly reshaping the river, filling in some channels while carving new ones, building new islands while eroding others away. The river meanders across its floodplain in great loops, sometimes cutting off bends to create oxbow lakes, constantly rewriting its path to the sea. Satellite images taken decades apart show how dramatically the river can change course, with some sections moving hundreds of meters in just a few years. One of the Amazon's most remarkable features is its lack of bridges. Along the entire main stem of the Amazon River, from its source in Peru to its mouth in Brazil, not a single bridge crosses the river. This isn't due to lack of engineering capability, but rather to the river's incredible width, the sparse population along much of its length, and the soft, unstable sediments that would make bridge foundations challenging and expensive. The only way to cross the Amazon along most of its length is by boat, a fact that has helped preserve the region's isolation and protect it from some forms of development. In 2011, the first bridge over a major tributary, the Rio Negro, was completed near Manaus, but the main Amazon remains unbridged, one of the last great rivers on Earth where boats reign supreme. The seasonal floods of the Amazon are not disasters, but anticipated events that have shaped life in the basin for millions of years. Unlike the flash floods that plague many rivers, the Amazon's floods are slow and predictable, taking months to rise and months to fall. This predictability has allowed countless species to evolve specific adaptations to take advantage of the flood cycle. Trees fruit when the water is high, so fish can spread their seeds. Fish spawn at the beginning of the floods, so their young can grow in the food-rich flooded forests. Birds time their nesting to avoid high water, but take advantage of the concentration of food that occurs as waters recede. The Varzea, the whitewater flooded forests, are among the most productive ecosystems on Earth during the flood season. The nutrient-rich sediments deposited by the annual floods create soil so fertile that trees can grow to enormous sizes. Some trees in the Varzea reach heights of 150 feet, with massive buttressed roots that help them remain stable in the soft, seasonally flooded soil. These forests produce an abundance of fruits and seeds that support not just the fish that swim among their trunks during the floods, but also monkeys, birds, and bats that feast on the bounty. When the waters recede, the fertile mud left behind supports rapid plant growth, with some plants completing their entire life cycle in the few months between floods. The Igapo, the blackwater flooded forests, present a different but equally remarkable ecosystem. The waters here are acidic and nutrient-poor, creating conditions that would seem hostile to life. Yet, these forests have evolved their own unique communities of specially adapted species. The trees grow more slowly than in the Varzea, but produce harder, more durable wood that resists decomposition in the acidic water. Fish in the Igapo have evolved to survive on less food, and many species have developed special adaptations to deal with the low oxygen levels that occur when organic matter decomposes in the still, black water. The Igapo may be less productive than the Varzea, but it harbors species found nowhere else on Earth. The physical power of the Amazon's water flow is staggering. At its mouth, the river discharges water with such force that it creates a tidal bore, a wave that travels upstream against the river's current. Known locally as pororoca, from an indigenous term meaning great destructive noise, this wave can reach heights of 13 feet and travel upstream at speeds of up to 15 miles per hour. The pororoca can last for over half an hour and travel more than 50 miles inland, powerful enough to uproot entire trees from the riverbanks. Surfers have recently discovered the pororoca, with some riding the wave for over 30 minutes, possibly the longest surfable wave in the world. The sediment plume from the Amazon is visible from space, a tan and green swirl extending hundreds of miles into the Atlantic Ocean. This plume is so large and persistent that it affects ocean chemistry and biology far from the river's mouth. The nutrients carried by the river support massive blooms of phytoplankton in the Atlantic, which in turn support fish populations that are commercially important to countries throughout the Caribbean. The Amazon's sediments have been detected in ocean cores taken more than 1,000 miles from the river's mouth, showing how far its influence extends into the marine environment. Climate scientists have discovered that the Amazon River actually affects the formation of hurricanes in the Atlantic Ocean. The massive amount of fresh water discharged by the river creates a layer of less dense water on top of the saltier ocean water. This layering affects how heat is distributed in the upper ocean, which in turn influences the formation and intensification of tropical storms. During years when the Amazon's discharge is particularly high, hurricane activity in the Atlantic tends to be different than in years of low discharge, showing how a river in South America can affect weather patterns as far away as the Caribbean and the eastern United States. The chemistry of the Amazon's water tells the story of an entire continent. The whitewater rivers carry the young minerals of the Andes, including calcium, magnesium, and other nutrients that make these waters slightly alkaline. The blackwater rivers, draining the ancient weathered Guyana and Brazilian shields, are acidic from the tannins leached from decomposing leaves, with pH levels that would kill most fish from other rivers. The clearwater rivers have intermediate chemistry, their waters filtered through sandy soils that remove most sediments and nutrients. Where these different water types meet, chemical reactions occur that can cause minerals to precipitate out, creating underwater deposits that affect river navigation and provide unique habitats for specialized organisms. The Amazon is one of the few rivers in the world where you can observe the curvature of the Earth. From the city of Óbidos, about 600 miles from the ocean, the river is already so wide that you cannot see the opposite shore. It disappears beyond the horizon, hidden by the Earth's curve. Standing on one bank, looking across to where the other bank should be, you see only water meeting sky, as if you were looking out to sea. This vastness is difficult to comprehend until you experience it, until you realize that this is not a river in any conventional sense, but a moving freshwater sea, a flowing ocean that happens to have banks. The microbiology of the Amazon River is as diverse as its visible life. Every drop of river water contains millions of bacteria, archaea, viruses, and other microorganisms, most of which have never been identified by science. These microbes drive crucial ecological processes, breaking down organic matter, cycling nutrients, and producing and consuming greenhouse gases. Some bacteria in the Amazon have evolved to eat plastic, potentially offering solutions to pollution problems. Others produce antibiotics that might yield new medicines. The river is essentially a flowing laboratory of evolution, with microbes exchanging genetic material and evolving new capabilities in response to changing conditions. Recent research has revealed that the Amazon River system actually breathes like a living organism. During the day, photosynthesis by algae and aquatic plants produces oxygen, while at night, respiration consumes it. This daily cycle is so pronounced that oxygen levels in some parts of the river can vary by over 50% between day and night. The river also exhales massive amounts of carbon dioxide, releasing more CO2 to the atmosphere than entire countries. This isn't pollution, but part of the natural carbon cycle, as the river processes the vast amounts of organic matter washed in from the surrounding forests. The sound of the Amazon is as distinctive as its appearance. Each section of the river has its own acoustic signature. The white noise roar of rapids, the gentle lapping of water against flooded tree trunks, the splash of jumping fish, the clicks and whistles of dolphins, the deep bellowing of howler monkeys at dawn. At night, the soundscape changes completely, with the day shift of birds and monkeys giving way to the night chorus of frogs, insects, and nocturnal birds. Recording artists and scientists have documented these soundscapes, finding that they can identify their location along the river just by listening. Each spot having its unique combination of water sounds and animal calls. The night sounds of the Amazon create a symphony unlike anywhere else on Earth, a composition that changes with the setting sun and continues until dawn brings a new arrangement of voices. As darkness falls across the river, the soundscape transforms completely. The birdsongs of day, the screeches of macaws, the calls of toucans, the whistles of tanagers gradually fade, replaced by an entirely different orchestra. This transition happens slowly, each species following its own internal clock, some falling silent, while others are just beginning to warm up their voices. The result is a gradual shifting of sound, like musicians trading places on a vast, natural stage. The chorus begins with the frogs, thousands upon thousands of them, each species singing its own particular song. The giant monkey frog produces deep, resonant calls that can be heard over a mile away, while tiny poison dart frogs add their high-pitched trills to the mix. Glass frogs contribute delicate, bell-like notes, and the paradoxical frog, which grows smaller as it matures from tadpole to adult, adds its own unique voice to this amphibian orchestra. Scientists have documented over 400 species of frogs in the Amazon basin, and on any given night near the river, dozens of species might be calling simultaneously, creating layers of sound that rise and fall like waves. Insects add their own essential voices to the night chorus. Crickets provide a constant background hum, their chirping so reliable that the frequency of their calls can be used to estimate the temperature. Cicadas contribute their distinctive buzzing, some species so loud they can damage human hearing if you stand too close. Katydids rasp and click, creating rhythms that sound almost mechanical. But perhaps the most remarkable insect sounds come from species most people never see. Beetles that drum on wood, moths that emit ultrasonic clicks to confuse hunting bats, and aquatic insects that create bubbles underwater, each pop adding to the river's nighttime percussion section. The mammals of the night add deeper notes to this symphony. Howler monkeys, though most active at dawn and dusk, sometimes call in the dead of night, their roars carrying for miles through the humid air. Night monkeys, the only truly nocturnal primates in the Americas, communicate with soft hoots and whistles. Bats contribute their own ultrasonic calls, mostly beyond human hearing, but occasionally dipping into frequencies we can detect as rapid clicking sounds. The splash of a hunting river dolphin, the snort of a tapir coming to drink, the rustle of an armadillo foraging through leaf litter. All these sounds weave through the darkness. Even the river itself becomes more audible at night. Without the visual distractions of daylight, every splash seems louder, every ripple more pronounced. Fish jumping to catch insects creates sudden percussion. Caimans sliding into the water add bass notes. The gentle lapping of water against flooded tree trunks provides a constant rhythm underneath it all. During the flood season, when the river extends deep into the forest, these water sounds multiply and echo through the trees, creating an acoustic environment that exists nowhere else on Earth. If the nocturnal predators of the Amazon, darkness is not a hindrance, but an advantage. The jaguar, the apex predator of the Americas, is equally comfortable hunting by day or night, but often prefers the cover of darkness. Their eyes contain a special reflective layer called the tapetum lucidum that bounces light back through the retina, giving photoreceptor cells a second chance to capture photons. This adaptation makes their eyes glow green in the darkness and allows them to see in light conditions 6 times dimmer than what humans require. Jaguars are patient hunters, sometimes waiting motionless for hours beside a game trail or at the river's edge where animals come to drink. The ocelot, smaller than the jaguar but equally beautiful with its spotted coat, is almost entirely nocturnal. These medium-sized cats hunt everything from fish and frogs to birds and small mammals, using their exceptional night vision and acute hearing to locate prey in complete darkness. They're excellent swimmers and climbers, often hunting in the flooded forests, where they can move through the trees to ambush prey below. Ocelots have been observed catching fish by waiting on branches overhanging the water and swiping them out with their paws, a behavior that requires precise timing and excellent night vision. The margay, even smaller than the ocelot and almost entirely arboreal, has developed perhaps the most remarkable hunting technique of any cat. These small felines can imitate the calls of baby-pied tamarins, luring adult tamarins close enough to catch. This vocal mimicry, performed in the darkness of night when visibility is limited, shows an extraordinary level of cognitive ability and hunting sophistication. Margays spend almost their entire lives in the trees, hunting birds, small mammals, and even insects among the branches, their large eyes perfectly adapted to the dappled moonlight filtering through the canopy. Night brings out some of the Amazon's most unusual creatures. The kinkajou, despite looking somewhat like a monkey with its long tail and grasping hands, is actually related to raccoons. These honey bears, as they're sometimes called, emerge after dark to feed on fruit and nectar, playing an important role in pollinating certain night-blooming flowers. Their tongues can extend up to 5 inches to extract nectar from deep flowers, and their digestive systems are specially adapted to process large amounts of fruit. As they move from tree to tree, they spread seeds throughout the forest, making them important agents of forest regeneration. The silky anteater, no bigger than a teddy bear and covered in golden fur, spends its nights hunting ants and termites in the canopy. These tiny creatures are almost impossible to spot during the day when they curl up in balls among the leaves, looking exactly like seed pods. But at night, they become active, using their sharp claws to tear open ant nests and their long, sticky tongues to extract insects. They can eat up to 5,000 ants in a single night, moving slowly through the trees with their prehensile tails providing extra security. Perhaps no nocturnal creatures are more important to the Amazon ecosystem than bats. The Amazon basin is home to over 160 species of bats, more than any other region on Earth, and they perform countless ecological services. Fruit bats are essential seed dispersers, capable of carrying seeds many miles from parent trees. A single bat can disperse thousands of seeds in one night, and some trees depend entirely on bats for seed dispersal. Nectar-feeding bats pollinate hundreds of plant species, including many that open their flowers only at night, specifically to attract bats. These flowers often have pale colors that show up well in moonlight, strong fragrances that carry through the night air, and sturdy construction that can support the weight of feeding bats. The infamous vampire bats, of which there are 3 species in the Amazon, have developed one of the most specialized feeding strategies of any mammal. Using heat sensors in their noses, they locate areas where blood vessels run close to the skin of their prey. Their saliva contains anticoagulants that keep blood flowing, compounds so effective that scientists have developed stroke medications based on vampire bat saliva. Contrary to popular belief, vampire bats are highly social animals that share food with hungry roost mates and remember which individuals have helped them in the past, showing a level of reciprocal altruism rare in the animal kingdom. Insect-eating bats patrol the night skies above the river in vast numbers, each consuming up to half its body weight in insects every night. Their echolocation is so sophisticated that they can distinguish between edible and toxic insects by the echo patterns from their wing beats. Some moths have evolved fuzzy scales that absorb echolocation calls, making them acoustically invisible to bats. In response, some bats have evolved to use frequencies outside the range that moths can detect, leading to an evolutionary arms race that has been ongoing for millions of years. The Amazon's nocturnal world includes countless insects that emerge only after dark. Lunar moths, with their pale green wings and long tails, float through the forest like ghosts. Lanternflies, despite their name, don't actually produce light, but have bizarre head projections that may help them avoid predators. Hercules beetles, among the largest insects in the world, lumber through the night, searching for rotting fruit and tree sap. Some can grow to over 7 inches long and are so strong they can lift objects 850 times their own weight. Many of the Amazon's snakes are primarily nocturnal hunters. The emerald tree boa spends its days coiled on branches, perfectly camouflaged among the leaves, but at night it becomes an active predator. Using heat-sensing organs along its lips, it can detect warm-blooded prey in complete darkness. These snakes are ovoviviparous, meaning they give birth to live young that are orange or red when born, only developing their green coloration as they mature. The color change helps young snakes avoid predation from adults of their own species, as the adults don't recognize the differently colored young as the same species. The fer-de-lance, one of the most dangerous snakes in the Amazon, is primarily nocturnal and often hunts along riverbanks where small mammals come to drink. These pit vipers can detect temperature differences as small as 0.003 of a degree, allowing them to track prey in total darkness. They're ambush predators, sometimes waiting motionless for hours or even days in the same spot until suitable prey passes by. Their venom is a complex cocktail of proteins that not only kills prey, but begins breaking down tissue for easier digestion. As darkness falls, a different set of birds takes over the Amazon skies. The great potu, a master of camouflage during the day when it resembles a broken branch, becomes an active hunter at night. These birds have enormous eyes that gather available light, and enormous mouths that can open wide enough to swallow surprisingly large prey. They hunt by sitting motionless on exposed perches and waiting for large insects, bats, or even small birds to fly within range, then launching themselves into brief pursuit flights. Their haunting calls, which sound like mournful human moans, are among the most distinctive sounds of the Amazon night. Nightjars and nighthawks patrol the airways above the river, their wide mouths scooping up insects in flight. These birds have specialized feathers around their mouths that may help funnel insects into their gaping maws, and their silent flight allows them to surprise prey. Some species perform elaborate aerial displays at dusk, diving from great heights to produce booming sounds with their tail feathers, part of complex mating rituals that take advantage of the dramatic lighting of tropical twilight. The spectacled owl, one of the largest owls in the tropics, hunts along the river edges for small mammals, birds, and even crabs. Young spectacled owls have markings that are almost the reverse of adults: white faces with dark spectacles rather than dark faces with white spectacles, possibly helping them avoid aggression from adults who don't recognize them as the same species. These owls can turn their heads up to 270 degrees, an adaptation that compensates for their inability to move their eyes within their sockets. The medicinal plants of the Amazon have been used by indigenous peoples for thousands of years, representing one of the most sophisticated traditional pharmacy systems on Earth. It's estimated that indigenous peoples of the Amazon use over 4,000 plant species for medicinal purposes, and Western science has barely begun to understand this vast repository of healing knowledge. The shamans and healers who maintain this knowledge don't just know which plants to use. They understand complex preparation methods, dosages, combinations, and the specific conditions under which plants should be harvested for maximum potency. Cat's claw, or uña de gato, grows as a woody vine throughout the Amazon basin, using curved thorns that resemble feline claws to climb toward the canopy. Indigenous peoples have used it for centuries to treat everything from arthritis to cancer, and modern research has confirmed that it contains powerful anti-inflammatory and immune-boosting compounds. The inner bark must be harvested carefully and sustainably, as over-harvesting can kill the vine. Different indigenous groups have different preparation methods, some making teas, others creating concentrated tinctures, and still others combining it with other plants to enhance its effects. Dragon's blood, or sangre de drago, is a remarkable tree resin that looks exactly like blood when the bark is cut. This crimson sap hardens quickly when exposed to air, forming a protective barrier over wounds. Indigenous peoples have used it for centuries as a liquid bandage, and modern research has found it contains compounds that not only protect wounds, but actually accelerate healing. The resin also has internal uses, treating ulcers and other digestive problems. Some indigenous groups believe the trees must be spoken to before harvesting, asking permission and explaining the need for their medicine. The coca plant, despite its controversial modern associations, has been a sacred medicine in indigenous Amazonian culture for thousands of years. When chewed or brewed as tea, coca leaves provide mild stimulation that helps cope with altitude sickness, hunger, and fatigue. The leaves contain numerous alkaloids beyond cocaine, including compounds that help regulate blood sugar and provide essential nutrients. Indigenous use involves complex cultural protocols and is fundamentally different from the concentrated, processed form that has caused so many problems in the modern world. Ayahuasca, perhaps the most famous Amazonian medicine, isn't a single plant, but a combination of at least two: the ayahuasca vine and leaves containing DMT, usually from the chacruna plant. The sophisticated chemistry involved in this combination is remarkable. DMT is normally broken down in the stomach, but compounds in the ayahuasca vine inhibit the enzymes that would destroy it, allowing the DMT to become orally active. Indigenous peoples discovered this complex interaction through means that remain mysterious to Western science. The preparation involves lengthy cooking processes and specific rituals, and its use is deeply embedded in spiritual and healing practices. Curare, the famous arrow poison, represents one of the most sophisticated pharmaceutical preparations of the indigenous Amazon. Made from various plants, depending on the region and cultural group, curare causes muscle paralysis by blocking signals from nerves to muscles. The genius of this poison is that it only works when injected into the bloodstream. It can be safely eaten, meaning hunters can consume animals killed with curare-tipped arrows without ill effects. This selective toxicity led to curare's adoption in modern surgery as a muscle relaxant, revolutionizing anesthetic practices. The knowledge of medicinal plants extends beyond just knowing which species to use. Indigenous peoples understand that the same plant can have different properties depending on where it grows, when it's harvested, what other plants are growing nearby, and how it's prepared. They know that some plants must be harvested at night, others at specific phases of the moon, and still others only after certain weather patterns. This deep, nuanced understanding represents thousands of years of careful observation and experimentation. Many Amazonian medicinal plants work not through single active compounds, but through complex synergies between multiple chemicals. Western pharmaceutical approaches, which typically isolate single compounds, often miss these synergistic effects. For example, the anti-malarial properties of certain plants may result from combinations of compounds that work together, each enhancing the effects of the others. This complexity makes it difficult to create pharmaceutical drugs that match the effectiveness of traditional preparations. The transmission of medicinal plant knowledge in indigenous cultures is itself a sophisticated process. Young people chosen to become healers undergo years of training, not just memorizing which plants to use, but learning to observe subtle signs in patients, understanding the spiritual dimensions of illness, and developing the intuition to know which treatments will work for specific individuals. This knowledge is often encoded in songs, stories, and rituals that serve as mnemonic devices, ensuring accurate transmission across generations. Climate change is fundamentally altering the Amazon River system in ways that would have seemed impossible just decades ago. The river that has flowed steadily for millions of years is now experiencing extremes that push both human and natural communities to their limits. The changes aren't just about less water or more water. They're about the breakdown of predictable patterns that countless species, including humans, have evolved to depend upon. Recent years have seen both the worst droughts and the most severe floods in the Amazon's recorded history. In 2023 and 2024, the river system experienced back-to-back droughts that left major tributaries at their lowest levels in over a century. Ships that normally navigate the river with ease found themselves stranded on sandbars. Communities that depend on river transport for everything from food to medical supplies found themselves isolated for months. The economic impact rippled throughout the region, as goods couldn't reach markets and tourists couldn't reach lodges. The droughts have caused unprecedented wildlife mortality. In Lake Tefé, water temperatures reached 39 degrees Celsius, 9 degrees above normal, causing the death of over 200 endangered river dolphins. Fish died by the millions, their decomposing bodies contaminating water supplies and creating health hazards for riverside communities. Birds that depend on fish found themselves without food during critical breeding seasons. The cascading effects move through the entire ecosystem, showing how interconnected life in the Amazon truly is. But the extremes swing both ways. The floods of recent years have also broken records, with water levels rising higher and staying high longer than ever recorded. These aren't the predictable, life-giving floods that the Amazon has always experienced, but violent, destructive events that tear mature trees from their roots and wash away decades of soil accumulation. Communities that have lived along the river for generations, whose houses were built with traditional knowledge of flood patterns, have found themselves underwater for the first time. The changes in the river's behavior are directly linked to broader climate patterns. As global temperatures rise, the Amazon region is warming faster than the global average, with some areas warming by up to 0.6 degrees Celsius per decade. This warming doesn't just mean hotter temperatures, it fundamentally alters the hydrological cycle. Warmer air holds more moisture, leading to more intense rainfall when it does rain. But it also increases evaporation, making droughts more severe when rain fails to come. The forest itself plays a crucial role in generating rainfall through a process called evapotranspiration. Trees pull water from deep in the soil and release it through their leaves, with a single large tree releasing up to 300 gallons of water per day into the atmosphere. This moisture forms clouds that produce rain, not just locally, but hundreds of miles away. Scientists call these flows of atmospheric moisture flying rivers, and they carry more water than the Amazon River itself. As deforestation reduces the number of trees, less moisture enters the atmosphere, creating a feedback loop where less forest means less rain, which means more forest dies, which means even less rain. The implications extend far beyond the Amazon basin. The flying rivers generated by the Amazon's trees provide rainfall for agricultural regions throughout South America, including the grain-producing regions of Argentina and southern Brazil. Without the Amazon's moisture pump, these regions could see rainfall decline by 40%, devastating food production, millions of people. The Amazon's influence on rainfall extends even to the American Midwest, where moisture from the Amazon contributes to precipitation patterns. Scientists warn that the Amazon may be approaching a tipping point, beyond which large portions of the rainforest could rapidly transform into savanna-like ecosystems. This isn't a gradual change, but a sudden shift that could occur within decades. Some models suggest that if deforestation reaches 25% of the original forest area, and it's currently at about 17%, the remaining forest might not be able to generate enough moisture to sustain itself. Combined with climate change, this tipping point could arrive even sooner. The changes are already visible in the southern and eastern edges of the Amazon, where the dry season has lengthened by about a month over the past 40 years. Trees that evolved for a specific climate are dying, unable to cope with the new conditions. Fires, once rare in the humid rainforest, are becoming common, releasing stored carbon and accelerating climate change. Some areas of the Amazon have already transformed from carbon sinks, absorbing CO2 from the atmosphere, to carbon sources, releasing more CO2 than they absorb. The human communities along the Amazon River are adapting to these changes, with a combination of traditional knowledge and modern innovation. Houses are being built on taller stilts or with floating foundations that can rise even higher than traditional designs. Some communities are developing early warning systems, using a combination of indigenous knowledge of natural signs and modern meteorological data to predict extreme events. Agricultural practices are changing too, with farmers planting more drought-resistant varieties and adjusting planting schedules to match new rainfall patterns. But adaptation has its limits. The extremes are becoming so severe that traditional coping mechanisms are failing. Fishing communities that have always been able to predict where fish will be during different water levels are finding that fish behavior has become unpredictable. Agricultural communities that have selected crop varieties over generations for specific flooding patterns are finding that these varieties no longer match the new reality. The speed of change is outpacing the ability of both human and natural communities to adapt. International efforts to protect the Amazon are intensifying, but they face enormous challenges. The Amazon spans 9 countries, each with its own government, policies, and economic pressures. While some countries have strengthened environmental protections, others have weakened them in favor of economic development. Illegal logging, mining, and agricultural expansion continue despite laws meant to prevent them. The very vastness that makes the Amazon so important also makes it nearly impossible to protect effectively. Indigenous peoples, who have been the most effective guardians of the forest for thousands of years, are at the forefront of conservation efforts. Studies have shown that indigenous managed lands have lower deforestation rates than even national parks. Indigenous communities use sophisticated monitoring systems, combining traditional knowledge with modern technology like satellite imagery and GPS mapping to detect and prevent illegal incursions into their territories. But these communities face constant pressure from illegal loggers, miners, and ranchers, often with little support from national governments. The economic value of an intact Amazon far exceeds what could be gained from its destruction. The ecosystem services provided by the Amazon, rainfall generation, carbon storage, climate regulation, biodiversity preservation, are worth trillions of dollars annually to the global economy. Yet these services are largely uncompensated, while the immediate profits from deforestation flow to a small number of individuals and corporations. Finding ways to value and pay for these ecosystem services is crucial to the Amazon's survival. New technologies are providing both challenges and opportunities for Amazon conservation. Satellite monitoring can now detect deforestation in near real time, allowing rapid response to illegal clearing. Artificial intelligence can predict where deforestation is likely to occur next, allowing preventive action. Drones can monitor remote areas that would be impossible to patrol on foot. But technology also enables destruction, with improved roads providing access to previously unreachable areas, and social media platforms being used to coordinate illegal activities. The future of the Amazon River depends on decisions being made today, not just in South America, but around the world. The products we buy, the food we eat, and the policies we support all have impacts on the Amazon. Beef, soy, timber, and minerals from the Amazon are exported globally, meaning consumer choices in New York or London directly affect deforestation rates. Climate change driven by fossil fuel use anywhere on Earth affects rainfall patterns in the Amazon. The river that seems so remote from most of our daily lives is actually intimately connected to the global systems that sustain us all. Despite the challenges, there are reasons for hope. Young people throughout the Amazon region are combining traditional knowledge with modern education to develop new approaches to sustainable development. Ecotourism is providing economic alternatives to deforestation in some areas. Some countries have made significant progress in reducing deforestation rates through a combination of better enforcement, economic incentives, and protected area creation. International awareness of the Amazon's importance has never been higher. The sounds of the Amazon River at night tell stories of both continuity and change. The same species of frogs that have called from these waters for millions of years continue their chorus, but their numbers are declining. New sounds have been added: the hum of boat motors that run all night, the distant whine of chainsaws that operate under cover of darkness, the crack of trees falling in places where such sounds have never been heard before. But also, increasingly, the sounds of conservation. The voices of young indigenous activists broadcasting from the forest. The beep of GPS units marking protected boundaries. The discussions of communities planning their own futures. A night spent beside the Amazon River is an experience that changes how you understand darkness. Without the light pollution that most of us live with, the night sky reveals itself in its full glory. The Milky Way, our galaxy seen edge-on, stretches across the sky like a river of light, and it's easy to understand why many indigenous cultures see it as the celestial reflection of the Amazon itself. Shooting stars are common, and on some nights, satellites pass overhead, modern additions to an ancient sky. The darkness of the Amazon night is not empty but full, not frightening but embracing. It wraps around you like a warm blanket, filled with sounds and movements and life. Your eyes adjust, and you realize you can see more than you thought. The shimmer of water, the silhouette of trees, the subtle movements of nocturnal creatures. Your other senses sharpen to compensate, and you become aware of smells you didn't notice during the day. Sounds that were drowned out by visual distractions. The feeling of humidity on your skin. The subtle changes in air temperature that mark the approach of dawn. In these dark hours beside the river, time seems to flow differently. Without clocks or schedules, without the constant stimulation of modern life, your mind settles into older rhythms. Thoughts slow down and deepen. Worries that seemed urgent fade into perspective. The river's constant flow becomes a meditation, a reminder that everything passes, everything changes, everything continues. The distinction between yourself and the surrounding environment begins to blur, and you understand, perhaps for the first time, what it means to be part of nature rather than separate from it. As the night progresses toward dawn, subtle changes begin. The nocturnal chorus doesn't stop suddenly, but gradually transforms. The frogs that have been calling all night begin to quiet. The night-flying insects settle. There's a period of relative quiet, a pause between the night shift and day shift of the Amazon's wildlife. The air often becomes completely still, and mist rises from the water, creating an ethereal landscape where the boundaries between river and forest, earth and sky, become indistinct. Then, almost imperceptibly at first, the eastern sky begins to lighten. Not with the sudden dawn of temperate regions, but with a gradual warming of the darkness. Black becoming deep blue becoming purple, purple becoming pink. The howler monkeys sense this change before it's visible to human eyes, and their roars announce the coming day, a sound that seems to awaken the entire forest. Birds begin their dawn chorus, each species joining at its appointed time, building to a crescendo of sound that rivals the nighttime frog chorus in its intensity. The transformation from night to day along the Amazon River is one of Earth's great spectacles, repeated every day for millions of years, yet never exactly the same twice. Mist rises from the water as the air warms, creating layers of fog that flow through the flooded forest like ghost rivers. The first rays of sunlight hit the canopy, turning the uppermost leaves golden while the forest floor remains in shadow. Parrots and macaws begin their raucous calls, flying in pairs or small flocks from their roosts to feeding grounds. The river itself changes color, from black to deep blue to brown as the light increases. This daily transformation represents the eternal rhythm of the Amazon, a rhythm that has shaped life here for longer than humans have existed. It's a rhythm that indigenous peoples have lived by for thousands of years, that millions of species have evolved to match, that the river itself embodies in its flow from the Andes to the Atlantic. It's a rhythm now threatened by changes happening too fast for evolution to match, too severe for traditional adaptations to handle. Yet it continues. Every dawn, a reminder of the Amazon's resilience. Every nightfall, a promise that the cycle continues. The Amazon River carries more than water. It carries time itself. In its sediments are the memories of ancient mountains. In its chemistry, the story of countless rains. In its curves, the history of a continent's shaping. Every drop that flows past has been on a journey that began with evaporation from the Atlantic, condensation into clouds, rainfall on mountains or forests, percolation through soil, collection into streams, and finally, the long journey to the sea. And then the cycle begins again. Has been beginning again for millions of years. Will continue beginning again as long as the sun shines and the earth turns. To understand the Amazon River is to understand connection itself. The connection between mountain and sea, between forest and atmosphere, between water and life, between past and future. It's to understand that what seems like a single river is actually countless rivers. What seems like one forest is actually hundreds of different ecosystems. What seems like wilderness is actually homeland to millions of people. It's to understand that every action has consequences that ripple outward like waves on water, affecting systems and species we may never see. The indigenous peoples of the Amazon have always understood this interconnection. Their worldviews don't separate nature and culture, human and animal, river and forest. Everything is related. Everything affects everything else. Everything has spirit and agency. This understanding, encoded in thousands of languages and cultures, many now endangered or extinct, offers profound wisdom for how to live sustainably on this planet. It's wisdom that the modern world is only beginning to appreciate, perhaps too late, perhaps just in time. As you rest tonight, far from the Amazon's waters, you remain connected to this great river system. The oxygen you breathe was partially produced by Amazonian plants. The weather patterns that bring rain or drought to your region are influenced by the Amazon's moisture pump. The climate stability that allows human civilization to exist depends partially on the carbon stored in Amazon soils and vegetation. The medicines that may one day save your life could come from plants that grow along the Amazon's banks. The river that seems so remote, so exotic, so separate from daily life, actually flows through everything we do. In the end, the Amazon River's most important lesson may be about time itself. The river has existed for millions of years, has reversed its course, has created and destroyed countless landscapes, has sustained countless species through countless generations. It operates on a timescale that makes human history seem like a brief flicker. Yet, human actions in just the past few decades threaten to fundamentally alter or even destroy this ancient system. We have become a geological force, capable of changing rivers and climates and the very chemistry of the atmosphere. With that power comes responsibility. The need to think beyond human timescales, to consider consequences beyond immediate profits, to value what cannot be replaced. The Amazon River will outlive us all. Whether it continues to flow through the world's greatest rainforest or through degraded grasslands, whether it continues to support millions of species or only thousands, whether it continues to regulate global climate or becomes a contributor to climate chaos, depends on choices being made now. These are not abstract policy decisions, but accumulations of individual choices. what we buy, how we vote, what we value, how we live. The river that has shaped a continent now depends on us to shape its future. As sleep approaches, let your mind flow with the river one last time. From its source in the high Andes, where glacial melt begins the long journey, through cloud forests, where every surface drips with moisture, down rushing mountain streams that carve deep gorges, into the vast lowland where the river spreads and meanders, through flooded forests where fish swim among tree trunks, past indigenous villages where people have lived sustainably for millennia, through growing cities where the modern world meets the ancient river, and finally to the Atlantic, where fresh water meets salt, where river meets ocean, where one journey ends and another begins. The Amazon River flows on, has always flowed on, will continue to flow on. In its waters are the rains of tomorrow, the clouds of next year, the forests of the next century. In its sound is the earth's heartbeat, steady and strong, vulnerable and eternal. In its story is our story, the story of water and life, of time and change, of connection and continuation. As you drift towards sleep, let the river carry your thoughts. Let its flow become your breath. Let its rhythm become your heartbeat. The Amazon flows through your dreams tonight, carrying you gently toward tomorrow, toward hope, toward the peace that comes from knowing you are part of something infinitely larger, infinitely older, infinitely more beautiful than you ever imagined. Rest now, like the river rests in its pools and quiet eddies. Rest like the forest rests in the still hours before dawn. Rest like the indigenous peoples have rested beside these waters for thousands of years, trusting in the river's continuation, in the forest's abundance, in the morning that always comes. The Amazon River flows on through the night, through your dreams, through time itself, carrying everything toward the sea, toward the sky, toward tomorrow. You have done enough for today. Close your eyes, breathe deeply, and let the great river carry you into peaceful sleep. Dream of waters flowing, of forests breathing, of life continuing. Dream of the Amazon, and in dreaming, help dream it into the future. Good night.